Hey everyone, Jeff Boutelier here. If you're new to the world of whitetail hunting, or maybe you've been at it a while but want to sharpen your skills, you've come to the right place. There's something truly special about heading into the woods in the fall. That crispness in the air, the changing leaves. It's a feeling that gets right into your bones. But before the hunt even begins, the real work, the real connection to the land and the animals, starts with scouting. It's about learning the language of the forest, reading the story that the deer leave behind for us. This time of year, as the season approaches, what you do now can make or break your entire hunt. Fall scouting isn't just a casual stroll through the timber. It's a deliberate, thoughtful process of piecing together a puzzle. It's about understanding a buck's daily patterns, his habits, his home turf. It's the difference between just hoping a deer walks by and knowing with a deep sense of confidence where he's likely to be and when. It's this knowledge that transforms you from a passive observer into an active participant in the ecosystem. Don't let it intimidate you though. We all started somewhere and the learning curve is part of the adventure. The 10 tips we're about to go through are designed to give you a solid foundation. They're the building blocks you can use to start reading the landscape with a hunter's eye. By the end of this, my hope is that you'll feel more prepared, more confident, and more excited than ever to get out there and put these skills to the test. So, grab a notepad, settle in, and let's talk about how to find that buck. The first and most fundamental skill you need to develop is learning to identify deer sign. Think of it as learning the alphabet of the woods. Without it, you're just walking blind. Tracks are the most obvious starting point. Look for that classic heart-shaped print pointed at the front. Pay attention to the size. Bigger, more splayed tracks often suggest a heavier, more mature deer. Also notice the dew claws. If you see 2 dots behind the main hoof print in soft ground, that's often a sign of a buck, as their heavier front ends cause them to sink in deeper. You're not just looking for a single track, you're looking for a story told in the dirt. Beyond tracks, you need to keep your eyes peeled for droppings or scat. This tells you deer are spending time in an area. Fresh, shiny, clumpy pellets mean a deer was here very recently. Older, dry, and scattered pellets tell you the sign is cold, but it's still a clue that this is a place deer frequent. Then you have rubs, which are one of the most exciting signs to find. This is where a buck has scraped his antlers against a sapling or small tree to rub off velvet and deposit his scent. Look for shredded bark and polished wood. The size of the tree being rubbed can give you an idea of the size of the buck. Finding a line of these rubs is like finding a signed posted highway leading you right into his core area. Now that you can spot the sign, let's talk about one of the most critical pieces of the puzzle bedding areas. This is a deer's sanctuary, their bedroom. It's where they feel safe, where they spend the majority of their daylight hours, especially mature bucks. Finding these spots is key, but approaching them is a delicate dance. A bedding area isn't always obvious. Look for thick, nasty cover places you wouldn't want to walk through. Think dense thickets of briars, stands of young pines, or the tops of ridges where they can use the wind in their eyes to detect danger from below. You'll often find multiple oval-shaped depressions in the leaves or grass where deer have laid down. The reason these areas are so important is that everything a buck does radiates from his bed. He'll get up in the evening to move towards food and water, and he'll return in the morning to rest. Your goal isn't to bust in there and spook him out. In fact, you want to do the opposite. Once you locate a likely bedding area, back off. Pin it on your map. The real strategic advantage comes from figuring out how he travels to and from this sanctuary. By understanding where he sleeps, you can set up along his travel routes and intercept him when he's on his feet and vulnerable, without ever letting him know you were there. It's a game of chess, and the bedding area is his king. If bedding is where a buck feels safe, food is what gets him on his feet. A deer's entire world revolves around its stomach, and if you can figure out what's on the menu, you're one step closer to punching your tag. In the fall, the menu changes. Early in the season, they might still be hitting green food sources like alfalfa, clover, or soybean fields. These are easy to spot and can be dynamite spots for an early season hunt. Look for well-worn trails leading into the corners of these fields. That's where they often feel most comfortable entering the open. As fall progresses and the first frosts hit, a major shift happens. Acorns become king. Find an oak ridge that's dropping acorns and you found a deer magnet. Get on your hands and knees and look for the acorns themselves, but also look for caps and chewed up shells on the ground. This tells you deer are actively feeding there. Don't overlook other food sources like apple orchards or even the tender browse at the edge of a recent timber cut. The key is to identify the preferred food source at that specific time. A buck will often travel a significant distance for a high-value meal, and your job is to be waiting for him when he shows up for dinner. In modern scouting, the trail camera is honestly one of the most powerful tools we have. It's kind of like having a scout out in the woods for you 24/7, gathering intel while you're at work or, sleeping. But just having a camera isn't enough. You really have to use it effectively. Placement is everything. Don't just strap it to a random tree. Place it on those key locations we've been talking about, along a major trail leading from a bedding area, overlooking a scrape line, or on the edge of a primary food source. Personally, I like to angle my cameras down the trail rather than perpendicular to it, so I get a longer look at the deer as it walks by. Once you start getting pictures, you're not just looking for any deer, you're actually trying to build a profile of the bucks in your area. When is he showing up? Is it always at night, or are you getting daylight photos? Daylight pictures are the gold standard. They tell you a buck feels comfortable moving in that area during legal hunting hours. Pay close attention to the timestamps. If a buck is consistently showing up at 5:30 p.m. every other day, you've got a highly predictable pattern you can hunt. Use the photos to identify specific bucks, learn their travel directions, and inventory your herd. A trail camera isn't magic, but honestly, it's the closest thing to it for patterning a mature whitetail. Deer are creatures of habit and, efficiency. They rarely wander aimlessly through the woods. Instead, they use established travel corridors, which are basically their highway system. Learning to identify and interpret these routes is crucial for deciding where to hang your stand. The most obvious sign is a well-worn trail, a literal path beaten into the ground. But you really need to look deeper. Is it a main trail, wide and muddy, used by does and fawns? Or is it a fainter, more subtle trail that skirts the edge of thick cover? Mature bucks often use these secondary trails to stay hidden. The real magic, though, happens when you find a funnel. A funnel is any feature, natural or man-made, that kind of constricts deer movement into a predictable, narrow area. It could be a strip of woods between two open fields, a saddle in a ridge, a creek crossing, or the place where a fence line ends. These are natural ambush points because they force deer to pass through a specific spot. When you find a funnel that connects a known bedding area with a primary food source, you've found a potential gold mine. Walk these corridors, look for tracks and rubs along the way, and visualize how a buck would use this terrain to his advantage. That's where you want to be. You can do everything else right, find the sign, locate the food, pinpoint the bedding, but if you ignore the wind, it's all for nothing. A whitetail's #1 defense is its nose. It can smell you from hundreds of yards away, and the moment it does, the game is pretty much over. Understanding wind direction isn't just a suggestion, it's a non-negotiable rule of hunting. Before you even step into the woods to scout or hunt, you have to know which way the wind is blowing and which way it's forecasted to blow. This knowledge dictates everything. It tells you which route to take to your stand, which stand you can hunt on a given day, and where to expect a deer to come from. A smart buck will often use the wind to his advantage, traveling with it at his back, or more commonly, with a crosswind so he can smell what's ahead of him and see what's to the side. Your job is to get downwind or crosswind of where you expect the deer to be. This means having multiple stand locations set up for different wind directions. Always assume the wind will swirl in valleys and on lee sides of ridges. Playing the wind correctly is, honestly, the ultimate sign of respect for the animal you're pursuing. When you scout is just as important as where you scout. The goal of fall scouting is to gather information without alerting the deer to your presence. If you go crashing through the woods at prime time, you can educate a buck and make him go nocturnal before the season even starts. So, when is the best time to go? I prefer to do my most intensive on-the-ground scouting during the middle of the day, from about 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. During this time, most deer are bedded down and less likely to be on their feet. This minimizes your chances of bumping into one. Another great time to scout, especially if you need to get close to a sensitive area, is during a rainstorm. The rain helps dampen your noise as you walk, and it washes away your ground scent much more quickly. It also keeps deer hunkered down in their beds. As you get closer to your hunt, your scouting should become less intrusive. Shift from walking the property to observing from a distance with binoculars or a spotting scope. Glassing a field edge from your truck a few hundred yards away in the evening can give you incredible insight without ever setting foot in their territory. Be strategic, be quiet, and be smart about your timing. Your brain can only hold so much information. After a few trips to the woods, details start to get fuzzy. Where was that big rub? Which trail had the most tracks? This is why taking good notes and photos is honestly an absolute game changer. You gotta treat your scouting like a scientific investigation. Carry a small notepad and pen, or just use a hunting app on your smartphone like OnX or Hunt Stand. Whenever you find something significant, a scrape line, a bedding area, a food source, mark its exact location on a map, and don't just mark it, make notes about it. Describe what you see. Maybe something like, heavy rub line on cedar trees running east to west along the ridgetop, or oak flat dropping lots of acorns, tons of chewed shells on the ground. Take photos of the sign, the trails, and even the surrounding landscape. These photos will be invaluable later when you're back at home trying to piece the puzzle together. This journal, over time, becomes your personal database of hunting knowledge. Over the years, it'll build into an incredible resource, letting you see patterns not just from day to day, but from season to season. It's the work you do now that pays dividends for years to come. When you are in a deer's territory, you are, well, an intruder. How you manage that intrusion determines your success. This really comes down to two things: stealth and scent control. Stealth is about more than just being quiet. It's about moving with purpose and awareness. Walk slowly. Stop often to look and listen. Use the terrain to your advantage, staying in the shadows and using trees and brush to break up your outline. Try to avoid snapping twigs and rustling leaves whenever possible by watching where you place your feet. Think like a predator, deliberate, patient, and observant. Now, scent control is the other half of the equation, and it actually starts before you even leave the house. Wash your scouting clothes in scent-free detergent and store them in an airtight bag or container. Before you get out of the truck, spray down with a scent-eliminating spray, paying attention to your boots, your pack, and your hat. Be mindful of what you touch. Don't grab every tree branch as you walk by. The less scent you leave behind, the less evidence there is of your presence. Combining stealthy movement with rigorous scent control allows you to slip in, gather your intel, and slip out like a ghost. This last tip is arguably the most important because it's the foundation upon which all hunting is built: respect. First and foremost, this means respecting private property. Never set foot on land you don't have explicit permission to be on. Knocking on a landowner's door, introducing yourself, and asking politely is the only way to do it. If you're granted permission, treat that land better than you would your own. Pack out all your trash, leave gates as you found them, and don't drive where you're not supposed to. Building a good relationship with landowners is essential for the future of hunting. Respect also extends to the animal and the regulations that govern the hunt. Before you go out, make sure you know the local and state hunting laws inside and out. Know the season dates, the bag limits, and any specific rules for the area you're in. This isn't just about avoiding a ticket, it's about being an ethical and responsible hunter. These regulations are in place to ensure healthy wildlife populations for generations to come. Being a hunter is a privilege, not a right, and our actions in the field reflect on all of us. Always be a good ambassador for the sport. Alright, so there you have it. 10 essential tips to get you started on your fall scouting journey. We've covered a lot of ground from reading sign to playing the wind, but remember, this video is just the beginning. The real learning happens when you get out there and do it. Take these concepts, get your boots on the ground this fall, and start putting them into practice. Go find those trails, locate those food sources, and start building that mental map of your hunting area. Start trying to think like a deer. There's no substitute for experience. You will make mistakes. We all do. You'll spook deer, you'll misread the wind, you'll sit in the wrong spot. But every single one of those moments is a lesson. Every hour you spend in the woods, whether you see a deer or not, you're gathering knowledge and deepening your connection to the natural world. Be patient with yourself and enjoy the process. The pursuit is just as rewarding as the harvest. So, good luck out there this season, be safe and be ethical. I'd love to hear about your own experiences. If you have a scouting tip that's worked for you, or a story from your time in the woods, please share it down in the comments below. Let's learn from each other. And if you found this video helpful, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more hunting and outdoor content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.